Is a housing crash likely? Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.Heise here and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein of coffee because we're going to have a look at this article in which the experts are telling us that a housing fire sale is becoming increasingly unlikely. Remember when the RBA did their modelling to look at the impact of a 40% fall in property values? Remember when the banks were warning us of a 10, 20 or 30% potential fall in house values? Remember other people warning of just overheating in the property market? It's concerning. It really is how inflated our property is, how unaffordable it is for the average person. Gone are the days when one person could support a family and buy a home on an average income. That's now quite the fantasy. Your quality, it could be achieved, but your quality of life really needs to take a few hits, which probably isn't really a bad thing anyway, but still we're not as we were in the past. So there's a large group of people who are hoping for a correction in the property market. But we've hit our first recession in 28 years, and, well, unemployment has shot up. Large portions of the entire economy has been locked down. International tourism is virtually non-existent. International students aren't arriving at the moment very much at all. Migration, well, that's off the cards, and yet property seems to still be going up. And sure, the pundits will target it a particular way and say, look, property's going up, look at this area, this averaged up over the whole city, this tiny percentage has gone up. But you need to pull it apart and look at it, in a little bit of depth. Apartments aren't doing so well. Investment quality units, some are falling up to 15% in Sydney. Some property is still at 2015 levels. Rents have fallen down as well, all around the country. You've also got the Airbnb stock flooding into the market, which is affecting the rental returns on these property. Now, we're not really seeing the market implications of all of this because I keep calling it mortgage keeper. Mortgage holidays are still in force until next March. And then the CBA has guaranteed or publicly declared their intention to not repossess any properties until September 2021. Now, I know we all like to think the banks are all nice and friendly. In reality, we all know that's them protecting their own interests. It's a hassle taking a property of someone and jumping through the steps. There's a cost involved. I think we'll start to see more and more people get the quiet tap on the shoulder saying time to sell, time to get out. Here you go, you can go interest only until you sell. So let's have a look at this article's take. Australian real estate fire sale is increasingly unlikely, say experts. Well, is it because the government is going to keep throwing more things at the housing bubble? And the problem is future generations will pay for this. And the class divide that is materializing in Australia between those who are in the property sector and those who are not is just going to continue to grow. And that's going to, encourage more people to jump into property, which is completely understandable, but then that reduces the incentive to innovate and invest in other parts of the economy. And then all of a sudden, when, foreign countries that we trade with start putting the screws and using techniques to show that they can survive without our exports, then we might face a potential much worse economic situation. But don't worry, we've got housing. Although, how much of these spec homes are built from imported products? You don't want to even look into that because that gets quite depressing, really, when you look at that as a percentage. So, much hyped real estate fire sales due to the economic destruction brought by the pandemic are becoming increasingly unlikely for the Sydney suburbs, inner city and CBD. The Commonwealth Bank's pledge earlier this week not to force the sale of homes owned by customers affected by the pandemic is another blow to forecasters who predicted dramatic price falls due to the pandemic to those hoping to snap up a bargain. See, this is the thing. Look at all of this intervention that's taking place in the market. As buyer demand holds firm in both residential and commercial markets, the big four banks are standing by their customers. ANZ, Westpac and NAB have not made similar statements to CBA, outlining extended home loan holidays. However, spokespeople for each lender said that they will continue to work with customers on a case-by-case scenario, suggesting they too would shield pandemic-affected borrowers. Well, think about it. They may take a loss on a property for 6 months or something, but if they can ride it out, if they can give that person that bit extra time so they can get back onto their repayments, make other cuts, take little Johnny out of private school, cut the footy lessons, cut everything to just keep that mortgage going, the bank will be happy. They'll definitely be happy. Sell all your furniture, sell the curtains, sell everything that the kids think they're next. Try and find 2 jobs, collect scrap metal, do what you can. Because the banks, well, they don't want to be forced to hold a whole lot of property that's going down in value. When the pandemic arrived, economic commentators warned of a fiscal cliff when mortgage deferrals and government stimulus packages such as JobKeeper and JobSeeker were to finish in September. Well, they've extended it, guys, again. However, this lender leniency and government aid has now been stretched until early 2021. And remember, they're not mentioning in this article too, what about business? Johnny's dad is running a business and he's trading while insolvent and he's getting JobKeeper to prop it up. And he's not paying rent. Chief economist at realestate.com.au, Nerida Kniesby, said the withdrawal of support had been far slower than originally expected. We had that September cliff, which ended up not being a cliff, and support continued, she said. Well, that's it. The government is chucking everything they can at property. This is... How many voters will be disenfranchised? What we're seeing now in terms of very extreme levels of distress at the moment is that it's quite low. The most extreme being a mortgagee sale, and we've only got 2 mortgagee listed properties on realestate.com.au right now out of more than 160,000 listings. Where we'll see a rise in distress will be more likely where we have higher levels of vacancy and very low demand. For now, that seems to be in our CBDs. When we start to see withdrawals of support, it's likely there will be people impacted, but at the moment the banks seem to be working through it, she said. Simon Presley, Propertologies, head of research, said the dire predictions for the national property market had been grossly blown out of proportion. Well, because you can't predict the unnatural things that the government will do. What shows you is we're not in a true free market, everyone here. Not at all. I mean, the cash rate is at 0.1%. That's just not natural. There will be no cliff because no one benefits by pulling the rug out from under people. The banks will hurt just as much as everyone else. Everyone gets that, he said. Mr. Presley agreed that if there are to be pandemic-induced price drops, it is likely to be those high-density markets that are already seeing signs of stress. That's it. So how many mum and dad investors are sitting in those high-density markets? So is that the lesson we take away from all of this? Just stay clear of units as a long-term investment. Don't buy a skybox. Buy a piece of dirt. I've said all along that the 2 most vulnerable markets across Australia are Sydney and Melbourne. And the more that this unfolded, the stronger I feel about that, he said, pointing out that APRA's September data showed only a 7.4% housing loans were still on holiday. Overall, I know it's not nice if you own... it's not nice if it's your own home loan, but it's not blood in the streets. We've got to remember, these are not shares in the stock market, they're homes. And the last thing any human wants is to lose their home. They'll burn their shirt before they allow that to happen, he said. And he's right there. People will do whatever they can. But not all of these are homes. A lot of these are investment properties too. Or people hold on to an investment property, running at a loss without able to kick out a tenant. And then maybe potentially incurring increased costs for increasing insurance, holding costs, sinking costs. Tom Panos, real estate industry expert and Sky News commentator, said he expected the CBD to recover from the pandemic exodus and a residential sell-off unlikely. I don't see any distress coming, he said. The reason why is interest rates. The rates have dropped so low that affordability is there, and those that were the main victims of the pandemic in terms of employment don't represent your typical home buyer. They were your hospitality workers who were not at the life cycle of home ownership. Some of them may never be at the life cycle of home ownership. That's the concerning thing here, everyone. That used to be the life cycle of home ownership. We're just going to get a greater class divide here, everyone. It's going to be the property owners and those that don't. I was talking to a gentleman when I was a student architect working in a practice here, and he was complaining that his parents were immigrants and they never had a chance to get ahead, and then it's hard for him to get ahead. I couldn't quite appreciate it. And now that I think back, if he just had a bought property, then he'd be quite well. Because that was, what, a while ago? 10 years now? Whoa, I'm getting old. Taz Costi, Commercial and Site Acquisitions Manager for Cohen Handler Buyers Agency, said he was not expecting a flood of distressed properties on the commercial market. "I've record number of buyers and interest rates are so low," he said. "Some owners that might have bought on sharp yields are looking to trade out. There might be a slight transition next year due to the end of mortgage holidays and JobKeeper, but I don't think there will be fire sales." A survey conducted by Finder in May found that 6% of respondents, equivalent to 1.2 million homeowners, had contacted their lender or were planning to make contact regarding a pause in mortgage repayments. By October, Finder's Consumer Sentiment Tracker study found that 20% of homeowners were struggling to pay their mortgage. You're painting different pictures here, aren't we? This is a fifth. Graham Cook, Insights Manager at Finder, said the property market had been set to take a fall in the wake of the pandemic, but that looks less likely now. The pandemic has pushed some people out of the cities, with more Aussies realizing they can work remotely. As a result, prices and property sales are rising in outer city areas rather than dropping. For once, it's not the Sydney and Melbourne capitals driving the market, he explained. The future for the housing market looks strong. Prices are rising and borrowing is through the roof, he said, adding, "There still could be a risk of defaults when JobKeeper disappears. The extra certainty for CommBank customers will be one less thing to worry about, and it may well spread across the Big Four," Mr. Cook said. While the remaining three of the Big Four banks have not made statements outlining extending home loan holidays, spokespeople for each lender told News Corp that they will continue to work with customers on a case-by-case scenario. So, there we have it, everyone. Arguments from the experts that a fire sale is not likely. What do you think? Well, what else can they do to slow the plunge in property? What do you think? When will we get Mortgage Keeper, everyone? Are you hoping for a correction in the property market, or do you think they'll just do whatever they can to kick the can down the road? And because they don't, the way they measure inflation, we're not going to really see the impact with, well, this money creation materializing in the housing bubble. As always, let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and would like to support the content I create here, there are a few ways you can. You can join us on YouTube or Patreon. You can support us using our affiliate links at Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or Kucoin. You can buy a merch from HeiseSays, use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, or support us via PayPal. Take care, everyone. Have a great day. I'll see you next time.